Hello and welcome back to the worst Warmachine channel on the internet. I'm Malorian, and it's time for another Warmachine Weekly. Now, the topic today that the patrons voted on is one from Nick West, and what Nick West wants to know is, what's the current state of Warmachine and Privateer Press? Now, obviously, this is going to be a hot topic. This is something where people have a lot of opinions, and the thing that I got to say from this is that a lot of the opinions that all of us have are unsubstantiated. So we don't have the data behind it, right? So maybe some people do have the data, but I don't really have hard data on like what their sales are and all these different things. So I'll have some pieces of evidence that's going to lead me to this conclusion, but it's good for all of us to realize that we're doing that kind of like with the goggles of only seeing our current, like our local area and just the information we can pick out. None of us have those like real sights of what's happening behind the curtains. But with that being said, let's jump into this hot topic and take this on. Now, obviously, there's going to be two sides to this conversation. There's how is Warmachine doing, and then how there's Privateer Press doing. So let's start over here with how is Warmachine doing. And honestly, Warmachine's doing great. If I look at like Mark III, the current steamroller, the balance of the models, it is probably at one of the best points it has ever been. And I've been saying these things a couple of times going through Mark III, and you know, there has been times where there's been like shadows of doubt, you know, when the Archons come out and it's like, those are pretty good for 4 points. When some super solos come out, it's like, those are pretty crazy for 4 points. Or like, you know, Gatsby comes out and like, okay, that's pretty ridiculous for 14 points. Even in those cases, if I think back to like how things were in Mark II, there is no comparison. Again, I remember times where me being a lucky Signar player would go up against minions and it doesn't really matter what's going on. My stuff is vastly superior to their stuff, and I'm just expected to win that matchup. Or I get to play against Bradagus with the triple port, and basically, like, unless my opponent's, like, completely drunk, I'm going to lose that game because blop, blop, they get onto me and I'm dead. So we are nowhere close to that. And even right now, first, for starters here, if we were to rank where the different factions are and then take like the top faction versus the worst faction and all that type of stuff, like there's no guarantees there. We might have a ratio of like, 60 to 40, but it is not like the 90 to 10 that we had before. Plus, more importantly, we have that dynamic update. Since that last one where Faye and the rest of Privateer Press fix things and tweak the points on all these super solos and on Gatsby and all that type of stuff, man, things are just so much better now, so balanced. It feels like people can go in there and play so many different things. I'm loving it. When I go to Steamrollers, people are trying all this different stuff, and even though like I still see some things like Deathchev, you know, like Cardchev 2, being like, it is nowhere close to being broken as the things I was worried about before. Cardchev 2 versus like Denny 2 and or like Haley 2 and Mark 2, these are not the same conversations. These are different things. So Warmachine, super thumbs up, everything great. Now let's talk about the state of Privateer Press, which is a little bit worse. Now, I think maybe a lot of bit worse. But anyway, the first thing that we have to really look at as like a piece of evidence is just like the number of staff they have. Back in the great days of Mark II, they had a lot of staff, a lot of developers, a lot of painters, a lot of all these different people working for them, and now they don't. Now, we have to give them credit that, look, there's a global pandemic going on right now, and so people are not playing the game as much, which means they're not buying as much, and if that income is not coming in, they need a smaller staff just to exist. If you look at any company out there, they probably shrank during the pandemic for these obvious reasons. You had the staff to meet the needs, so that's something that can be said there. Then again, even coming into the pandemic, this was already happening. We were seeing more people leaving Privateer Press than were coming in. Now, something else we have to accept is that someone leaving Privateer Press doesn't mean that there's something wrong with Privateer Press. Again, in any company we look at, people are going to come, people are going to go for various reasons. Maybe they came in, they grew as whatever their experience and background is, then go on to the next challenge. Maybe they did have an issue with the company and they went somewhere else. Maybe they just moved. Maybe their situation changed. Whatever it is, this door keeps on going. And so again, when we look at like the big names, like the Wills and stuff that left, that doesn't mean that there's a problem with them. However, with them, I'm meaning Privateer Press. However, again, when we just look at the basic resources of like, look, you had these people before, and now you have fewer people, that's not a good sign. And it's something that we really should be thinking about. I think something else, though, that I've been told about and that I can see and everybody can really see around the world is the biggest problem right now with Privateer Press is that they can't sell their models like they used to. And that comes down to distribution. So Privateer Press does not have stores that are out there, right? They're not a McDonald's where you stroll on down, order a McCador meal and grab it and go with your models. They have to distribute this through others. So they'll be distributors that are big warehouses that will buy up basically their models and then be going up to ship them out to actual other gaming stores. And so the distributor takes a cut and then the actual stores will take a cut. And this is just the way that the world works, right? If you're not big enough to have your own stores, this is what you need to do to get your product out for consumption. And for Privateer Press, this is broken. And the way that I can say this is broken is like, if you're in North America, you're lucky, right? You might be complaining like, oh, I can't find this model, I can't get this. That is nothing. Think about the people that are over in Europe or in UK or in Australia. And when a new model comes out, it is months and months and months and months after when most people get the model compared to when they get the model. And maybe they just can't really get them at all. And that is hurting the game so much, right? The idea that people like, gamers, we're like nerds of convenience, right? We want to walk in, grab something cool, paint it up and play it. And yes, we can go on there and we can order from the online store and we can do all those types of things and wait however long it takes to come. But if we can do that, or we look over and see there's other things being sold in that store, guess what? Odds are, in a lot of cases, we're just going to buy those things of convenience and go for that. And if we're continuously being discouraged by Privateer Press just not having their product available, we're going to start buying these other things. It's just the way that things go. And that is a major problem right now. That is why when I'm hearing from various other communities in North America, the game is a lot stronger and there's more people playing as opposed to over in Europe where so many people have given up on it. Now, again, we have to also talk about where if you look at the situation right now, it is biased by the fact that you're in the middle of a 2-year, global pandemic. And so people aren't playing anyway. But even if we talk about prior to the pandemic and, just like the group of community of people that have been like playing online and like War Table and stuff like that, you can definitely see a difference when we're talking across and I'm talking to people in Europe and the UK and all this stuff. And it's like, oh, wow, things are really, really hurting there as opposed to what it was before. And you could be saying it's due to things where like their game got worse and stuff like that. But we already had that conversation, and I feel the game is better than ever. I feel the real thing that's hurting them right now is that distribution. Now, that's really, really bad, and I hope it's something that they're trying to fix. Looking at how they're trying to fix that, it looks like they're leaning towards Kickstarter. When they're doing things with Warcaster or Riot Quest, that's where things are mainly going, right? Is jump on this Kickstarter, and this is how you get your models. We're not seeing this for Warmachine right now, but maybe that's going to be their next step. I literally have no idea. But should it be the way they go, right? If you go with the Kickstarter, you get that whole distribution mess out of the way, and then we get it straight to them. We get to sell it straight to the people. We don't care about all these things in between. And I think we have to also realize that there's other problems as well with this distribution. Like, why are we even having these distribution issues? And the real issues are part and parcel. I hear from some distributors that there's real issues in the way that they make accounts with Privateer Press. So I've heard some one-off, evidence pieces from that. I don't know if that's the real thing. But another thing I've heard as well is like the model bloat. There's just so many models. And when I'm running this warehouse that has limited space, and it's like, look, I need to try and sell these things. And if I have to be filling up my warehouse and my shelves with like these long gunners that nobody buys and things like this, look, your product just isn't very appealing to me. Oh, well, what's this other thing? This Song of Fire and Ice game? These things are selling like hotcakes? Great. Let's buy those things up and do that. So as a business person, if I own a warehouse, I'm going to want to be doing things like that. I want to be pulling in the things that are going to sell as opposed to buying things that might sit on my shelves forever and who knows how long I'm going to be getting that return in an investment. The same thing for the actual stores in the front. Accounts having trouble, that's something that we're hearing about. But on top of that, if I have this huge model bloat and I'm bringing all these things in and I'm having all these things sitting around, again, as a salesperson that's trying to make some money, am I going to be loading up my gaming store with the stuff that takes up lots of room and doesn't sell for a long time? Or do I want to be bringing in the stuff that will be having a big fast turnover? Obviously, I want to be making that money. Let's go with what's selling. So that's something that's really hurting Privateer Press. But if we keep that in mind and think about the fix, if they go to Kickstarter, how does that really affect those things? Well, if people are buying things off of Kickstarter, there probably isn't really a need to bring it into the store. There's some incentives built into that where stores can buy large packages and then they have them in and they can sell them that way. But the danger for a store is, yes, they can do that, but if you do this investment and bring it in, and then the players just got their stuff from the Kickstarter anyway, okay, well, that initial buy I'm missing out on, and then later down, like, is this going to be part of the model bloat, and these things will be sitting on my shelves? So it's still not really all that great of a thing for the store, and if the store is not going to be having things there to be seen, well, there's that whole thing of convenience, right? That new gamer that wants to walk in and buy things will be like, oh, well, I guess I'll buy this 40K stuff instead, right? So if you ask me, that is the sad story right now of Warmachine and Privateer Press. The game is fantastic. The game is at one of the greatest spots it's ever been, but it's shackled and being held back by the fact that we are not having the ability to be getting these models to the players. And I've seen this locally, and I've seen this and heard this in other areas too. They're like, look, we have these new players. We want to get them into the game, but we just literally can't buy starter sets. And if we want to be buying things that are competitive for them, we just can't, or it takes forever. And by the time it does, oh great, now they're playing some new video game. They've jumped into 40K. They've done something else. Even as competitive players, look, I'm in this game already. I'm entrenched, but I want to buy the new hotness. I want to be buying the Karchev's 2s, but it's just going to take forever to get here. And by the time it gets here, it's like, this is ridiculous. I've probably just converted my own if I want to be trying to play this thing, right? So that's the real problem that Privateer Press is going to have to figure it out, and I really hope they do it soon, right? We have this whole reality and excuse of this global pandemic that's been happening here, but this is now coming to an end, hopefully, and Privateer Press needs to hit this running with some sort of solution. So I hope that they're going to be finding some way to be doing this. Maybe it is going to work through this whole Kickstarter thing. Maybe they have a different solution. I don't know, but that's the current situation. So Nick West, that's my theory on it, but I'd love to hear from everybody else out there as well. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. Maybe you have some more, insights from your own areas or something put it down in the comments, and I'd love to be having those conversations. Otherwise, a big thank you to all my patrons, like my new content overlord, Alec. I also have Darrell Duncan, another content overlord, and then I have all my manipulators. I have Adrian, Brian, Dorian, Jordan, Kieran, Ryan, Samuel, Sloth Monarchy, and Stefan. Thank you to all for your support. Thank you to everybody else who's watching. And otherwise, we'll catch you later. Bye.